I hadn't left the country in 23 years. The last stamp in my passport was from 2001 Rome, when my wife Linda and I spent our 30th anniversary drinking bitter espresso in 2 small cups and getting lost down cobblestone alleys that smelled of rain and basil. She used to say, "Travel keeps you young, Harold." But youth, like travel, had become too expensive to maintain. These days, my adventures were smaller. Grocery runs to Publix every Tuesday, coffee at the diner on Main Street, the occasional drive to the pier when I needed to feel the sea breathing. My house, a modest single-story place in Jacksonville, Florida, was tidy, predictable, and quiet. Too quiet sometimes. When you've been a widower for 7 years, you start talking to inanimate things just to keep your voice in practice. The kettle, the radio, the framed photograph of Linda by the kitchen window. That morning, I was halfway through a crossword and a lukewarm cup of Folgers when my phone buzzed. Mark, my son. His calls were rare, usually requests or reminders. But that day, his voice came bright and warm, syrupy in a way I hadn't heard since he was a teenager asking for car keys. "Dad, big news. How do you feel about Paris?" I laughed, confused. Paris, Georgia, or Paris, France? France, obviously. Elena and I were just talking. You've never been to Europe since Mom passed, right? So we thought, why not a family trip? All 3 of us. You, me, Elena. Paris in June. I leaned back in my chair, letting the words settle. Paris in June. For a moment, the kitchen seemed to brighten, like the idea itself had opened a window I'd forgotten was there. "I don't know, son," I said carefully. "I'm not much for long flights these days." "Come on, Dad. You need this. It's your birthday, remember? 73. You can't celebrate another one alone with a frozen TV dinner." His tone was teasing, but it landed with a soft sting. He wasn't wrong. My last birthday had been me a microwaved lasagna and an old Jeopardy. "We'll handle everything," Mark continued. "Flights, hotel, tours, we've been saving for this. But hey, funny story. I maxed out my card last week paying for Elena's dental thing, and the travel agent's asking for a deposit tonight. Could we maybe use your card temporarily, just to lock in the tickets? I'll reimburse you on payday." He said it quickly, smoothly, as if rehearsed. I hesitated. "How much are we talking about?" $7,400. That covers all 3 tickets and the initial hotel booking. We'll pay you back in full once my bonus hits. Promise." I stared at the blue ceramic mug in my hand, the one Linda had bought at a flea market in Savannah. $7,400. That was more than I'd spent in total the past 4 months combined. But Mark sounded so sure, so confident. And it had been years since he'd sounded excited about doing something with me. I heard Linda's voice in the back of my mind, soft but firm. "Don't let them use you, Harold. They love your wallet more than your company." I took a slow breath and swallowed that thought. "All right, if it's really for all 3 of us." "Of course, Dad. You'll love it. Eiffel Tower, museums, good food, the works. I'll send the booking details in an hour." After we hung up, I sat there for a long time, staring at the calendar on the wall. June 12th, my birthday. I drew a small circle around the date. Then, for the first time in months, I smiled without forcing it. That afternoon, I called my friend Martha, a widow from church who liked to gossip and worry in equal measure. When I told her the news, she clapped audibly over the phone. "Paris? Oh, Harold, that's wonderful. You deserve it. Maybe it'll wake that sparkle back up in you." "I'm not sure about sparkle," I said, chuckling, "but I could use some fresh air." We talked about travel insurance, adapters, comfortable shoes, normal things, ordinary things. It all felt almost real. By evening, an email from Elena arrived. The subject line read, "Trip details, Paris." The message was neat, efficient. She always wrote like she was managing a small corporation. "Hi, Harold. We're so excited. Here's our tentative itinerary. Flights from Orlando to Newark. Overnight layover. Then direct to Paris. Return in 10 days. I'll handle hotel reservations. Easier to keep everything on one booking. Don't worry. I'll use your card just this once to secure the flights and rooms. And Mark will reimburse you by Friday. Can't wait. You'll love it. Elena. Attached were PDFs. Flight confirmations, booking numbers, a screenshot of Hotel Plaza Atheny in Paris. 5 stars, marble lobby. Rooms overlooking the Seine. I printed them out, smoothing the papers like they were passports to another life. My name sat neatly beside theirs in bold, black type. Harold Bennett. It looked official. It looked safe. For the next few days, I felt lighter. I started practicing phrases from an old French phrasebook Linda had kept. Un café s'il vous plaît. I even found my old leather suitcase in the attic and aired out on the porch. The smell of dust and cedar clung to it like memory. 3 nights later, Mark called again. His voice distant, distracted, the clack of a keyboard in the background. Hey, Dad, just checking you got the emails? Elena's finalizing the bookings. Oh, and there might be a small charge for the insurance upgrade. Around $400. Just FYI. I hesitated. All right, just make sure it's necessary. Of course. You'll thank us later if anything goes wrong abroad. Then, almost as an afterthought. Oh, and don't tell anyone yet. We want it to be a surprise post for Elena's travel blog. She's planning to document the whole trip. Sponsors and all. Sponsors. Travel blog. I had no idea what that meant, but I didn't ask. I didn't want to sound old or out of touch or suspicious. After we hung up, I checked my bank account. $112,000 in savings. What was left after Linda's hospital bills and the life insurance payout. I'd promised myself to never dip into it. But this was different, wasn't it? A birthday gift. A chance to feel like part of a family again. I closed the laptop and looked around my kitchen. The hum of the fridge. The slow ceiling fan spinning shadows across the tiled floor. It wasn't much, but it was home. And for once, I was going to leave it behind for something beautiful. Or so I thought. The following week, my little house in Jacksonville transformed into what you might generously call a travel hub. Piles of clothes I hadn't worn in years appeared on the bed. Sweaters, press shirts. The navy blazer Linda had bought me for our anniversary dinner at the Hilton back in '98. I ironed it twice, though the lining had long since come loose. I even took out Linda's old camera, a silver Canon PowerShot, still in its worn leather case, and wiped the lens with the hem of my T-shirt. Paris deserved better than cell phone pictures, I thought. Paris deserved film and patience. From the attic, I brought down my old leather suitcase, the one Linda and I had used on our last trip. The zipper stuck halfway, and one will squeak like a complaining bird, but it would do. I aired it out on the porch, and the smell of dust and cedar filled the air. It smelled like the past, but the kind that could travel. The travel documents Elena had sent were pinned neatly to the corkboard by the door, right under my electric bill and the doctor's appointment reminder. Every morning, I checked them, as if the details might vanish if I didn't look. Flight from Orlando to Newark, 9:45 a.m. Layover, 13 hours. Connecting flight, Newark to Paris, 12:15 a.m. That part struck me as strange. Why such a long layover? I'd asked over the phone. Cheap that way, Mark had said quickly. Besides, Newark's got good lounges. You'll be comfortable. It's only one night. One night. At 72, only one night, sitting upright in a plastic chair sounded like a punishment. But I laughed it off. They'd handle everything. They always did. I started practicing French again in the evenings, reading short articles from Le Monde online while heating can soup on the stove. Bonjour, comment allez-vous? The words felt stiff in my mouth, but pleasant, like remembering a song you used to know. Sometimes I'd catch my reflection in the dark window above the sink, gray hair, sun-spotted skin, but the eyes still bright. I almost looked expectant. A few days before the trip, a large envelope arrived from Travelix Agency, Atlanta. Inside, 3 printed itineraries, seat assignments, insurance documents. I noticed one small difference. My ticket said Economy Flex. Mark's and Elena's said Economy Premium. Must be a typo, I murmured, though my stomach tightened. When I called Mark, he sounded distracted. Background noise of traffic on speaker. Oh, yeah, Dad, about that. We used different points for ours, so it might show different seats. Don't worry, we're all on the same flight. He spoke so casually I felt silly for even asking. Still, when I checked my credit card statement that night, there were more entries than I remembered. Air France, $7,400. Air France Travel, $420. Booking.com, $2,900. I frowned, scrolling down the screen. 2 hotels. I murmured. Then the phone rang. Elena, bright and brisk as always. Harold, just a heads up, we booked a small airport hotel for the night before departure. Easier than driving at 3 a.m. at S called the Sunshine Inn, right by the terminal. You'll love it. Very convenient. Are we staying together? Oh, we might crash with friends nearer land that night. Just logistics. You'll check in first, and we'll meet you in the morning. Simple. I hesitated, chewing on the end of my pen. Elena, do I need to bring cash? No, it's all prepaid, she said cheerfully. We'll just settle up when we're back. She always said we never you. In the days that followed, I caught little things that didn't sit right. A Facebook post from Elena. A picture of her and Mark clinking champagne glasses with a caption. First class dreams loading. When I commented, looks like fun. Can't wait for Paris. She deleted my comment within an hour. Mark brushed it off when I mentioned it. Oh, that was just an old picture from work trip. Don't overthink it, Dad. I wanted to believe him. I really did. But the unease stayed, like the faint buzz of a bad electrical socket. I went to Target to buy travel-sized shampoo and toothpaste, then spent half an hour comparing prices on neck pillows. I even bought a set of new socks, soft gray cotton. Linda always said, good socks are the difference between a good trip and a miserable one. That night, as I folded clothes into my old suitcase, I found myself humming a tune I didn't recognize. Something light, hopeful. I laid out my passport, my reading glasses, and the printed itinerary. I checked the locks twice, watered the houseplants, and left a note on the fridge. Gone to Paris, back soon. When I turned off the lights, I caught sight of Linda's photo on the dresser. She was smiling, head tilted slightly, the same way she had the day we rode the Ferris wheel in Santa Monica. Would you have trusted them? I asked her softly. Of course, she didn't answer. The next morning, I got a text from Mark. See you Friday at 3 p.m. We'll drive together to Orlando. Love you, Dad. It's going to be amazing. For a few seconds, I believed him completely. Friday came wrapped in that thick Florida heat that makes the air hum. By noon, my shirt clung to my back, no matter how long I stood under the ceiling fan. I had my suitcase ready by the door, the printed tickets folded neatly inside my passport, and a small plastic bag of snacks, almonds, crackers, and a single apple. When I rolled the old suitcase toward the porch, the wheels squeaked across the tile like arthritic knees. The handle wobbled, but held. It was good enough. Linda would have said, things don't have to be new to work. Mark's black SUV pulled up at exactly 3 o'clock. He honked once, short and impatient as always. Elena was in the passenger seat, oversized sunglasses covering half her face. She waved when I came out, her smile bright but tight. Look at you, Traveler of the Year. Someone's out to keep up with you too, I said, forcing a grin. Mark popped the trunk. Suitcase in the back, Dad. We're a bit behind schedule. Orlando traffic's a mess. I climbed in and immediately noticed the difference between us. Elena wore a cream silk blouse, the kind that probably cost what I spent on groceries in a month. Mark had on a smart blue blazer, new loafers, and that stainless steel watch I'd once given him when he graduated college. They smelled faintly of something expensive, cologne and confidence. The drive started cheerful enough. We talked about Paris, the museums, the cafes. Elena mentioned some influencer restaurants she'd bookmarked. Mark kept checking his phone, murmuring to himself about exchange rates and upgrade confirmations. After 2 hours, we turned off the interstate toward a smaller road lined with palm trees and budget motels. Thought the airport was straight ahead, I said. Mark cleared his throat. Yeah, just a small change of plan. Flights got adjusted, so we're staying overnight near the airport. Easier for everyone. I peered out the window. The sign ahead read sunshine in weekly rates. Free Wi-Fi. The building was squat and sun-bleached, the kind of place truckers stop when there's nowhere else open. Elena clapped her hands lightly. Here we are. Cute, right? Cute wasn't the word that came to mind. The lobby smelled of bleach and stale coffee. A ceiling fan turned lazily above a counter cluttered with brochures for nearby alligator farms and airboat rides. The woman at the desk, name tag reading Terry, gave me a weary smile. Checking in, sir? Before I could answer, Mark stepped forward. Yes, for Harold Bennett. One night. She handed him a paper form, which he slid toward me with a pen. Just need your signature. Dad. Everything's prepaid. I signed, though the amount scribbled at the bottom, $79.99, made my stomach tighten. Terry handed me a plastic keycard. Room 214. Stairs to your left. Ice machines down the hall if you need it. I glanced back at the parking lot. You two aren't checking in? Elena smiled too quickly. Actually meeting a friend nearby. Flight stuff. But we'll come back in a bit to grab you for dinner. Okay. Mark leaned in and kissed my temple, something he hadn't done in years. Relax, Dad. Get some rest. Big day tomorrow. They were gone before I could respond. The SUV's taillights disappeared down the road, swallowed by evening traffic. The room was functional. A sagging queen bed, a single lamp missing its shade, and curtains that looked like they hadn't been washed since the Clinton administration. The air conditioner rattled like it had emphysema. I set my suitcase by the door and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the faded carpet. The silence was thick, humming faintly with the sound of distant televisions from other rooms. At 7, I called Mark. No answer. 8. Still nothing. I texted. Everything all right? Should I meet you for dinner? Read receipt never appeared. By 9, I walked down to the front desk. Terry was flipping through a gossip magazine. Excuse me, I said. My son said he'd pick me up for dinner, but I haven't heard from him. Any chance he left a message? She shook her head. Sorry, hon, no messages. You sure they're not just delayed at the airport? I suppose, I muttered, though a cold coil of dread had started tightening in my chest. Back in the room, I tried the TV. 2 channels worked. One showing a late-night infomercial for knives, the other a static-filled baseball game. I turned it off and stared at the beige wall until my eyes blurred. At 10:47 p.m., my phone buzzed. A text from Elena. Flight went through early check-in. We'll meet you at the terminal tomorrow morning. Don't worry, everything's fine. Sleep tight. No punctuation, no apology. Just fine. I wanted to believe her, but something in that message fell off. I checked my email again. The itinerary was still there, but now the seat assignments had changed. My name was gone from the main confirmation list. I refreshed the page. Still gone. The motel clock ticked loud in the stillness. At midnight, unable to sleep, I opened my laptop to check my bank account. The numbers hit me like a bucket of ice water. Air France Business Upgrade $9, 820 Hotel Plus Atheny, Paris, $3,200. Duty-free online, $684. My account balance had dropped by more than $13,000 since morning. For a long time, I just stared at the screen, blinking, as if the digits might rearrange themselves into cents. When I finally spoke aloud, my voice was calm. Too calm. They didn't just leave me here, I said softly. They used me to pay for it. The realization wasn't loud or cinematic. It was slow and suffocating, like watching water rise under a locked door. At dawn, I wheeled my squeaky old suitcase to the lobby. The coffee pot was nearly empty. Terry looked up from behind the desk. Checking out already? Yeah. My voice cracked slightly. Plans changed. She gave a sympathetic smile. Happens all the time, sugar. Outside, the sun was just rising. Paint in the parking lot gold. I stood there a moment, the warmth hitting my face, my hands trembling slightly as I reached for my phone. Mark's number went straight to voicemail. I stared at the empty highway stretching toward the airport. I could almost see them, Mark and Elena, sipping champagne 30,000 feet above the Atlantic, laughing about how Dad won't even notice. But I noticed. I always noticed. And this time I wouldn't just sit quietly and take it. I drove home that morning in silence. No music, no radio, not even the low hum of conversation you sometimes make with yourself when there's no one left to listen. Just the steady whine of the tires against the highway and the dull ache building behind my ribs. The world looked different, flatter, quieter. I passed the exit to the Orlando airport and wondered, absurdly, if I might still make it in time, if somehow they were waiting, if this was all just a mistake. But the logic in me, the same logic that had once balanced payrolls and mortgages and medical bills, said no, people don't accidentally spend $10,000 on champagne seats. By the time I pulled into my driveway, the sun was up, and my house looked exactly as it had before. The same trimmed lawn, the same half-dead fern by the mailbox. Nothing about the exterior hinted that the man walking through that front door had aged 10 years overnight. I set my suitcase down and went straight to the kitchen. The smell stale, air hit me. I opened the fridge and took out the leftover lasagna from Thursday. Cold but edible. I ate it standing up, one forkful at a time, because there was something almost comforting about doing a familiar, ordinary thing while the rest of your life collapsed. Then I sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I'd once helped Mark with algebra, where Linda and I used to do our taxes, and opened my laptop. The first call was to Sunshine Credit Union. This is Harold Bennett. I need to report fraudulent charges on my account. The young woman on the line was polite, efficient. She asked me to verify my details, then read the list of transactions aloud. I could hear the slight hesitation when she reached Air France Business Upgrade, $9,820. Sir, did anyone else have access to your card? Yes, I said flatly. My son. There was a pause, the kind reserved for bad news you don't quite know how to respond to. I'm very sorry, Mr. Bennett. We'll open a case right away. You'll receive paperwork within 24 hours. Meanwhile, I recommend freezing all cards and removing any shared authorizations. Shared authorizations? Yes. It says here your son, Mark Bennett, has limited access under a secondary power of attorney file. Would you like to revoke that? My pulse quickened. Yes, I said, effective immediately. I hung up and stared at the blinking cursor on the screen, a small white pulse that seemed to mock me. Then I did what any man with too much dignity and too little company does in moments like that. I cleaned the kitchen, the counters, even the sink drain that Linda used to nag me about. I scrubbed until the smell of bleach filled the room, until my hands shook not from anger, but from exhaustion. Only when the house gleamed did I sit down again, calmer now, the trembling replaced by a thin, deliberate focus. At 10 sharp, I called Margaret Wilkins, my attorney. She'd handled Linda's estate after the funeral and had the kind of steady, unshakable voice that made bad news sound like just another item on a to-do list. Harold, been a while. What's going on? I told her everything. The Paris trip, the motel, the charges. I left out nothing, not even my own gullibility. When I finished, there was a long silence on the other end. You still there, Margaret? Yes, she said finally. I'm just trying to decide whether to be furious or impressed. You said they used your card for business class tickets. Business class, hotel, maybe more. Altogether about 13,000 so far. That's theft, plain and simple. But it gets worse if he had access to your accounts through power of attorney. That means he's been touching more than you know. The word touching made my skin crawl. I'll come by your office tomorrow morning, I said. I want every document reviewed. Bring your statements, she said. And Harold, don't call them. Don't warn them. Let me handle it. Her tone left no room for argument. That night, I couldn't sleep. The house was too quiet again, every creak sounding like an accusation. I sat at my desk and opened my notebook, the one Linda had given me the Christmas before she got sick. The first few pages were filled with her handwriting. Recipes, grocery lists, reminders to pick up her pills. The rest were blank. On a clean page, I wrote, June 15th, 2024. They left me at the Sunshine and used my card. 13,000 gone. But they made one mistake. They taught me what I'm capable of when I stopped forgiving. Then I began writing everything I could remember. Dates, receipts, emails, screenshots. I wasn't writing as a victim anymore. I was writing as evidence. By midnight, I had a stack of notes an inch thick. Somewhere between the third and fourth page, I stopped feeling humiliated and started feeling something else. A cold, methodical satisfaction. The next morning, Margaret greeted me at her office with 2 coffees and a yellow legal pad. Let's see what we're dealing with. We went through my accounts line by line. By the second hour, she had her glasses perched halfway down her nose and her lips pressed into a thin, incredulous line. They've been pulling small transfers for months, she said finally. 500 here, 800 there. Mark labeled them as family expenses or shared maintenance. Totals over $53,000. I felt my stomach drop. He's been stealing from me since February. It's embezzlement if we can prove intent, she said. And given the spare stunt, I think we can. She typed something on her computer, then looked up. Do you still want him as your heir? The question hung in the air, sharp and clinical. I stared at the framed photo on her desk. Her grandkids at the beach, all sunburned smiles and innocence. No, I said finally. Not anymore. All right, she said. We'll start with revoking the power of attorney and rewriting the will. Everything else, police report, press statement, comes later. Press statement. You said he used your card publicly, right? Flew first class, expensive hotel? People like that love posting evidence. If it goes public before they can spin it, we control the narrative. I nodded slowly. For the first time in 2 days, I felt a faint hum of purpose. When I got home that evening, I found my answering machine blinking red. One new message. Mark's voice sheepish, casual. Hey, Dad. Sorry we didn't get to meet up at the motel. Crazy mix-up with the flights. We're in Paris. Can you believe it? The hotel's amazing. I'll call when we're back, okay? Love you. He hung up before I could even grab the receiver. I played it again, then once more just to hear the way he said love you like it was punctuation, not emotion. I deleted the message. Then I called my bank again and moved every cent, pension, savings, insurance payout, into a new account under Margaret's management. Before bed, I took out Linda's photograph from the nightstand. Her smile was small, knowing. I set it upright and whispered, You were right about them. But don't worry. I'm handling it now. For the first time since the motel, I slept soundly. It began, as many public humiliations do, with a photograph. 3 days after Margaret filed the fraud claim, she called me just before breakfast. Harold, do you read Travel Sphere magazine? No, I said, pouring coffee. Why? You might want to pick up the latest issue, or better yet, open your laptop. I did, and there they were, a full-color spread on the homepage. Influencer couple takes luxury leap. How Mark and Elena Bennett found romance in the city of light. The image was almost obscene in its perfection. My son in a tailored linen jacket, raising a flute of champagne against a backdrop of the Eiffel Tower at dusk. Elena, in a red dress I'd never seen before, laughing with a kind of open-mouthed joy that only comes from wealth unearned. The caption, photographed in their suite at the Hotel Plaza Athene, courtesy of their sponsor partnership with Air France Business Class. Air France Business Class. That phrase seared through me like heat. My money, their faces. I clicked through the gallery. There were 10 photos in total. I stopped at the fourth one, a close-up of 2 champagne glasses resting beside a credit card on the table. My credit card. The gold numbers were blurred, but unmistakable. Margaret, I said slowly, I think they just provided us all the evidence we'll ever need. I'll have my assistant contact the magazine, she said crisply. And a friend at the Jacksonville Herald owes me a favor. If they're selling this story, we'll sell the truth. By evening, my quiet little kitchen had become a command center. Margaret came over, spreading documents across the table. She'd already filed a report with the Florida Attorney General's office and the FBI's Elder Fraud Division. Bigger hammer, louder noise, she explained. But the noise didn't start with the law. It started online. The next morning, local news picked it up. Florida man claims son funded Paris vacation with his money. Subheading: They left me at a motel while they flew first class. The story went viral faster than I could have imagined. Within hours, comments flooded in. Some sympathetic, some angry, a few cruel. Typical kids these days, entitled brats. Hope he cuts them off completely. Justice for Harold. Justice for Harold. I repeated aloud. It sounded absurd and strangely satisfying. By noon, reporters were calling. One from a local TV station asked if I'd be willing to give a statement on camera. Margaret thought it was a good idea. Calm, polite, factual. The world loves an underdog who doesn't raise his voice. The interview took place in my living room the next day. They set up soft lights that made the old wallpaper look warmer than it was. I wore my best shirt and the watch Linda had given me on our 25th anniversary. The reporter, a young woman named Claire, sat across from me with a notepad. Her voice was gentle, practiced. Mr. Bennett, can you walk us through what happened? I told her everything. The call, the promise, the motel, the silence. I didn't dramatize it. I didn't need to. Reality and its cruelty is already cinematic. When she asked if I was angry, I paused before answering. Angry? I said quietly. No. Angry implies I still expect something from them. I don't. Disappointment's quieter than anger. It sits in your chest and stays there. Claire nodded, eyes shining. What do you hope happens now? I smiled faintly. I hope they learn that money doesn't just buy things. It reveals people. And I hope others my age remember that generosity without boundaries isn't love. It's a contract waiting to be rewritten by someone greedy. The segment aired that evening. I didn't watch it live, but my phone didn't stop ringing for hours. Old friends, neighbors, even the church pastor who said, "You handled yourself with more grace than I could have." The fallout came quickly. Mark's employer, a mid-sized tech firm in Atlanta, issued a press statement the next day. They used the phrase gross ethical misconduct. His contract was terminated effective immediately. Elena's travel influencer brand lost every sponsor within 48 hours. Their faces vanished from the internet as if someone had wiped them clean. I didn't take pleasure in their ruin. Not exactly. It was more like watching a storm move away from your house after tearing off a few shingles. You don't celebrate. You just breathe again. Still, part of me wanted to hear from them. I wanted an explanation, or at least an admission that I'd mattered more than a balance sheet. The first call came 2 days later. The phone rang late, close to midnight. I recognized the number instantly. I let it ring twice before answering. Dad. Mark's voice, ragged, panicked. Jesus. Dad, what have you done? They fired me. We're ruined. I didn't ruin you, I said. You did that yourself. You didn't have to go to the press. You could have talked to me. I did talk to you. At the motel. You didn't answer. There was silence, the kind that hums between two people standing on opposite sides of a burned bridge. "Please, Dad, you don't understand. Elena said we'd pay you back." "I do understand," I interrupted softly. I just stopped caring. Then I hung up. The next morning, Margaret dropped by with a small stack of documents and 2 paper cups of coffee. The bank approved the reversal. "You'll get most of your money back within 30 days. They're pursuing criminal charges, but that's up to you." "Will it change anything? For you?" "Peace of mind. For them? Consequences." I signed the form slowly. When she left, I sat by the window, watching the rain start to fall over the yard. For the first time in months, it didn't feel like a burden to be alone. That night, I drafted a new will. Everything, the house, the savings, the insurance, even the small rental property in Gainesville, would go into a foundation under Linda's name, the Linda Bennett Scholarship Fund, for first-generation students studying engineering. I added a note in my own handwriting beneath the legal text: "For those who build, not those who take." A week later, I received a letter. No return address, just my name in shaky penmanship. Inside was a single photograph: Mark and Elena at the Eiffel Tower, smiling for someone else's camera. On the back, scrawled in blue ink, "We're sorry." I folded it once, placed it in the drawer beside Linda's photo, and whispered, "Too late." Then I poured myself a glass of red wine, cheap, dry, a little bitter, and stood by the window while the night settled around me. They had taken my money, my trust, my dignity, but they'd also given me something back, a clarity that people spend whole lives chasing. I had found mine in a motel with flickering lights. 3 months have passed since the night my story made the evening news. The world moved on, as it always does. But here in my small house by the Florida coast, time stretches differently. The tides mark the hours better than any clock. I wake up early now, around 5:30. The mornings come soft and gold, the air heavy with salt and the sound of gulls bickering over breakfast. I make coffee, real beans, not instant, and drink it on the porch where the boards creak under my slippers. Some neighbors wave when they walk their dogs. A few even stop to ask, "Are you that man for the news?" I smile politely and say, I'm not a headline anymore. Just Harold Bennett, 73, retired engineer, widower, and finally in my own quiet way at peace. The settlement from the bank came through in July. After taxes and legal fees, I recovered a little over $46,000. Margaret handled most of it. She insisted. She also helped finalize the scholarship fund paperwork. We launched it last month. The Linda Bennett Memorial Scholarship, $10,000 a year for engineering students who come from working-class families. I attended the small ceremony at Jacksonville University. They gave me a name tag and a seat in the front row. The first recipient was a girl named Sophia Martinez, 19, with calloused hands and shy eyes. She told me her father fixes air conditioners for a living and that she wants to design cleaner energy systems someday. When she said that, something inside me, something I thought had long rusted, stirred back to life. After the event, she shook my hand and said, "Your wife must have been proud of you." I didn't correct her. I just nodded and said, "She'd have liked you." In the evenings, when the house goes quiet again, I walk down to the beach. I take Linda's old scarf with me, the one she wore that spring in Rome when the wind kept tangling her hair, and I watch the sun fall behind the waves. Sometimes I talk to her out loud, not like prayer, more like habit. "You'd have laughed, Lynn. You always said Mark had expensive taste. Turns out you were right. He just preferred other people to pay for it." There's no bitterness left in the words now, only a dry humor, the kind you earn after surviving yourself. Mark tried calling twice more after that first night. I never answered. Then the call stopped. Elena emailed me once, an apology that read more like a press release. "We made a terrible mistake. We were under stress. We never meant to hurt you." I didn't reply. Some debts can't be paid with words. I heard through a mutual acquaintance that they sold their house in Atlanta and moved to Nevada, chasing some new business opportunity. I wish them neither good nor ill. They've already received the only inheritance I'll ever give them, the truth of who they really are. Last week, I wrote my final letter to Mark. It's in an envelope on my desk, stamped and ready, though I haven't decided whether I'll send it. Maybe I will when I'm gone, maybe not at all. It reads like this: Mark, I hope you're well wherever you are. I'm writing not out of anger, but out of necessity, to make sure you understand the arithmetic of what happened between us. You took money, yes, but more than that, you took the belief that I had raised a good man. You spent it like it was nothing, on silk sheets and champagne and the illusion of success. But life, as you'll learn, has its own bookkeeping. Every wrong eventually shows up in the ledger. I've rewritten my will. Everything that was meant for you now belongs to something better. A scholarship in your mother's name. Her photo hangs beside the first student who received it. That girl will do more with that money than you ever would have. If you ever come across her name in a newspaper someday, remember that this, not Paris, not first class, not your empty apologies, is what legacy looks like. You left me in a motel with flickering lights. I left you in a world where the lights finally turned on. Dad, I read it once, twice, then folded it carefully and slipped it into the drawer beside Linda's photograph. Her face smiled up at me through the glass. For a moment, I could almost hear her laugh, low and amused, like she used to when I told her my half-baked plans that somehow always worked out. You really did it, Harold, I imagine her saying. You finally stopped being the nice guy. Not stopped, I murmured. Just learned where to draw the line. That night, a storm rolled in from a gulf. Thick clouds, flashes of lightning far out on the water. I sat on the porch with a blanket and a cup of tea, listening to the rain drumming the roof. The world smelled alive again. Wet earth salt, electricity. It occurred to me that peace doesn't come when everything is quiet. It comes when you've told the truth and survived the echo. I took a deep breath, let the storm wind slap my face, and smiled. Because sometimes justice doesn't come from courts or headlines. Sometimes it's just an old man, alive and unbroken, drinking tea in the rain while the people who betrayed him are somewhere far away, learning how empty first class feels when you're flying alone.